But drugs are a big topic for the soldier, and in World War One, cocaine played like a small role for pilots, like because they're the coolest anyhow. So they take cocaine and they fly better. But it wasn't.
It makes perfect sense.
It's a pilot's drug maybe, but it's not a mass drug really because it's too expensive.
Yeah.
So that you cannot really give it to like 3 million men. Like it doesn't make sense. But methamphetamine was quite cheap to manufacture, and that's why it became meth and not cocaine. While the French, for example, still banked on their red wine. So every French soldier, when Germany attacked them, drank 3/4 of a liter of red wine, while each German soldier was using up to like 20 milligrams of methamphetamine.
So they're running circles around these French guys.
I mean, the French guys didn't really stand a chance.
Right. They're running around drunk, and these fucking Germans are in their tanks.
I mean, just imagine the
grinding their
the
teeth down to
situation
nothing.
in the tank, you know.
Oh my God.
Because the tanks received the most Pravitine because they were used differently than before. I don't know how many are in a tank. 3 guys or 4?
I don't know.
So let's say 4 guys. I always think of 4 guys. So they're in the tank. Oh yeah, and the tanks were used as the avant-garde of the military movement. Usually before that, tanks, in the old thinking, tanks are like the backup. So you run, you know, and then you have the tanks and the big machinery from the back.
Behind you, yeah.
So 3 tank generals had the idea to kind of reverse it and put the tanks in the front and race with the tanks through the Ardennes Mountains. And that kind of paved the way for like the others to kind of run after them. And these tank divisions also received most of the methamphetamine because they had to reach the French border city of Sedan within 3 days and 3 nights. Being that fast, they would cut off the British and French who were north of them in Belgium because they thought the Germans would attack up there. So the Germans kind of ran through the mountains on tanks, and that was only possible because of the methamphetamine.
Wow.
That was used especially by people in the tanks. So that's why I always think of the tank with the 4 guys high on crystal meth, like racing into France. Like they were young guys, you know. They were just like in the tank on meth. Like I think it must have been a very intense experience, you know. And then it just kept going, and that's what led to this victory against France, which no one thought would have been possible because it was Britain and France together, stronger army. The defenders always are, you know, to invade successfully, you have to be, you know, overpowering. You have to have much more strength than the defenders, usually 3-1. But in this case, the Germans were weaker, but still won because they had the better strategy to go through the Ardennes Mountains on crystal meth, basically.
Right. Wow. Crazy.
That's what happened. Happened. And the French, they still like, I received a lot of feedback from France when my book came out there. They said finally, because for them it had been the unanswerable question, why did we lose? What happened? Why did these fucking Germans like overrun us and we didn't know what was going on? And because they were still fighting they had a different mindset.
Right.
They were not there yet. So that has been a problem for the French psyche for decades, which now is finally being solved.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. The Germans were ahead of their time. I know like some of the guys that were close to Hitler were really upset. I think maybe it was Himmler who was obsessed with like ancient civilizations and like what the Egyptians were doing and the pyramids.
Well, he had a Tibet expedition, for example, where he sent scientists to Tibet to find like the origins of mankind. And so the Nazis were about creating like a big story. Like they were, it's not just limited to Germany. It's a global kind of narrative that they spin of the superhumans who then conquer everything and where they come from. So they had like historians look at history in a totally different way than we do today, because they were supposed to interpret it a certain way.
Do you know if they were into like the Greeks and what the Greeks were doing?
Well, that's classical.
Because the Greeks were big into drugs.
Yeah, but I don't think the Nazis looked up to the classical Greek period
No.
because of drugs. Because drugs also was not something that was officially enhanced. Officially, the Nazi government was an anti-drug government. And when they took power, some of the first people they threw into concentration camps already in 1933 were like drug users. So they were... That's why I, growing up, always thought, the Nazis, they're all about purity and cleanliness.
Yeah.
And so that was also their image that was a big part of their image. So what did I want to say?
I was asking you about like how they looked at like the classical Greek civilization and like how much attention did they pay to the stuff that was going on then? Or did they read any of that stuff? Did they translate any of it? Or were they taking any ideas from classical civilizations or any other ancient civilizations that you know about, that you discovered?
I mean, the swastika does exist in India. It's just reversed.
Yeah.
So, and Himmler apparently did 3 hours of yoga each morning in his office because he was connecting with the ancient Aryan roots that come, out of India or out of the Himalayas, or like, I think he was like believing in magic and that there was something higher going on, more than the eye can see.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Hitler was much more like on the ground, but Himmler was this kind of evil dreamer.
Yeah.
So he's a very interesting character, actually, quite scary.
How was so you said you went to high school here in the U.S. and then went to Germany? Or when
I grew up in a German town which was 30,000 Germans and 10,000 American soldiers. So you could say there was like a big military presence.
Yeah.
So I kind of grew up with the American culture, and then when I was 16, there was the offer to go to the United States as an exchange student. This was financed by the U.S. Congress and the German Parliament to like make people get to know each other better. Like Americans would go to Germany for a year, Germans would go to America.
Yeah, sure.
Which I think makes a lot of sense, actually, because if you live in another country for a year, you learn the language, you understand the culture. So I actually became a state-sponsored, something that probably, I don't even know if it still exists, exchange student.
Yeah.
And at the end, we were all invited to Washington, and I was chosen to give a speech at the Senate of the United States, but not in the big hall, but like in a smaller room, but it was still big, about the different perceptions of the term freedom in Germany and in America. And I delivered that speech.
Interesting.
And that night I got late for the first time.
Oh,
by
really?
Someone who was in the audience. So the speech was good.
No way.
Yeah.
What a great story. Unforgettable story.
At Georgetown University, Washington. I've never told that story.
Very cool. Very exciting stuff. That sort of changed the trajectory of your life, didn't it?
It did, actually. We're still good friends.
Really?
Yeah, she's my oldest friend now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. Does she live here or Germany now?
She lives in Berlin.
Berlin. Okay.
Yeah.